Hello and welcome back to another Stonksy video. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can trade new listings. Obviously prepare yourself for anything that comes on an exchange that's new, or obviously new launches as well. A couple of high profile examples to run through to show you exactly how to avoid falling into the traps that people fall into, and obviously how to protect your capital if you are looking to pick some of these up, the techniques and obviously the patterns that they usually go through. So do make sure you drop a big like on the video, make sure you subscribe, and of course make sure you click them links in the description. Sign up to BloFin, where we're currently obviously looking at with this Bitcoin trade that's open at the moment, but of course make sure you sign up to Bitcoin as well. We are now partnered with them, link is in the description to that too. And of course make sure you signed up to Stonksy to get all things to related in the market, and of course Discord and bot access as well. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So new tokens, new listings, they are of course exciting for the market, particularly when you get high profile ones like Pengu and Pump, but also, you know, they can be a real big trap for people in the market that get overexcited or aren't prepared for just how low they can go, and of course they can cause severe loss. So we're going to run through exactly how you can approach them, how you can obviously stop yourself from losing money, well, you know, hopefully do that anyway, and then of course how you can play the reversals on them. So of course Pengu, first example, we're currently on the daily chart, an example of how, you know, new launches can go. You know, initial pump, fantastic, you know, went up a couple of X, and then of course over time then, you know, profit taking occurs, distribution, and then, you know, obviously demand dwindles, people look to say, okay, well, is this the bottom? I'm going to buy here. Next leg down, they say, okay, well, this must be the bottom. Then, you know, eventually supply comes into the market again, aggressive drop down, and then people just end up chasing the drop down, and before you know it, you know, you're 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 to 80% down on your initial investment, because you just keep chasing these consolidations that look like bottoms, obviously turn out to be false bottoms, and the price keeps dwindling. But eventually, if obviously the token is any good or it has decent backing, it will reach a bottom. Now, obviously, bottoming pattern can take a long time. As you see, Pengu here took many months, took about 2 months to actually bottom. But eventually it did. And then, you know, from there up to its most recent high has been about 10x. But, you know, obviously anywhere along the way, you could have grabbed yourself 3, 4, 5x potentially. So this is one example. It's all about patience and also, you know, understanding time capitulation. You know, obviously it takes time for these things to play out in the market. It's not an overnight thing. And we're having patience and obviously understanding distribution of tokens can obviously help you with avoiding this. But like I say, you know, if you're chasing this, you know, you could find yourself 80% down there. Or, you know, if you thought, okay, it's had one consolidation, it's dropped, I'm going to buy in here, this must be the bottom because it's coming testing the bottom of this wick. You know, that would be a logical thing to think. But then, you know, suddenly, bang, you know, it's another 60, 70% down. So it is very detrimental when you try and chase these new ones if there is no bottom in sight. Now, obviously, another one that we've had recently is Pump. Now, Pump obviously not as old, and something that we've been looking at on stream. So I did map out, you know, the potential area for Pump on stream, which would have obviously been in line with the Pengu one, basically coming down towards the lower echelons of the launch candle. Now, as it stands, Pump has put in what, you know, you may consider a better bottoming pattern at the moment, obviously on the lower time frame, currently on the 4 hour, but it has, you know, created somewhat of a current local bottom and has exploded up. So currently 15% up, breaking out of, you know, this local resistance that it's had. Now, down here would have taken it to about 80% drop, which obviously, you know, Pengu and others have suffered before getting that U-turn. Now, whether this is a bottom for Pump or not is yet to be seen. But, you know, it is witnessing what you could identify as accumulation or a bottoming pattern on the lower time frame, which could result in, obviously, a pump up, if you pardon the pun. But yeah, you know, a drop into here would have obviously taken it into, you know, that kind of minus 80% level, which we typically see. And then from there, it could have pumped up if, obviously, the demand was there. But as it stands, yeah, you know, if pump goes up from here, is this a high time frame bottom? That remains to be seen. Could it be a low time frame bottom? It could be. But again, you know, how many people may have thought this at this point here or at this point here as well and jumped in too soon and then obviously got caught in quite a severe drop down. So it's all about managing your emotions. You know, don't be in a rush to trade these things. Let the move play out and understand, you know, just because something's launched and it's gone down 30, 40%, that doesn't mean it can't go down another 30, 40% from there. So It's all about managing your emotions in the market and understanding these new launches. There is no price history, so there's nothing to go off. So what you're better off doing is obviously waiting for just distribution to take effect and using something. So from here onwards, you could say, okay, I'm going to have a nibble on pump. But then if it starts to say break down below here where the local bottom and demand is coming, then the idea is wrong and potentially it does come into, a bit lower down before looking for a potential reversal. So there are obviously two high profile ones. One that's fully played out in Penguin, and one that's pump that is currently playing out before our eyes, but is yet to be seen whether it's going to make a U-turn or not. But again, two examples on don't rush into things and let, the following days and weeks play out before you potentially look and say, okay, maybe now is a good risk-reward standpoint. Now, what we'll do next is go onto the exchange and obviously look at some new listings to help you not get caught out on things that have listed, potentially on other exchanges, but when they get listed on another, they can get huge pumps. So we'll look at them next. So when you come onto BloFin and you go obviously into futures, there is actually a section for new. So you can sort this by price if you want, or obviously by volume or whatever. We've clicked on Zora. Now Zora is obviously new on BloFin. It only came on, about a week ago. Now, obviously initial pump, great. But this type of pattern obviously can cause excitement, potential FOMO. More often than not, price returns to a starting point. Now, as you can see here, I've actually outlined where, the origin of the pump came from and potentially where you could see price dwindle down to. Now, this is obviously one flip of the coin where it's listed and it's gone all the way up. Obviously, others list and they can just go down and down and down. But obviously, this is one where, again, people may get caught in either chasing the move up or trying to reverse the move down too soon. What is obviously key here is, firstly, what is Zora? You want to do your homework on it. You want to understand what it is. Has it got good backing, the tokenomics, all that stuff behind it as well. But also, what you want to understand is, where on the chart could it be risk-reward standpoint? Here, the move up is very fast, very thin. We're only on the 1 hour chart, and obviously this is all we've got to play with. Where down here, as you can see, is where the origin of the move came from. This is where demand first came in. And this is where, in my opinion, obviously looking at this chart, it's not financial advice, but this would be where the highest risk-reward standpoint will be if you was to try and long this, obviously back to the upside. So I've found another one here on the new token listing called Mavia. And another, this is an example of obviously the flip side, one that launches and then obviously it just keeps dropping down. Now, very similar to Penguin and Pump, you don't want to get caught out on any of these bounces. So obviously here, you can see here. Now, if you are, and you're potentially trying to play reversals, obviously in and out quite fast, it is a good method to use, because you're not getting, too attached to the position and you're taking profits pretty aggressively. But as you can see, there was no bottom in sight for Mavia for a very long time. Just keep dropping down, dropping down, dropping down. Currently, as it stands, it's had a great reversal, great pump up, and potentially this could be the high time frame bottom. But how many people, again, got caught out with a new listing, chasing either whether it be longs or shorts on this and just getting completely chopped up, instead of letting the price do its thing, distribute, and then looking for that kind of accumulation and compression and bottoming pattern. As you can see here, that's a pretty standard one and a pretty evident one that you can see there before, stepping into the market. Now, I've just found one on that list, actually, that has done very, very well. This has been pretty much just walking up ever since list, and is obviously currently around 2.5x up, roughly, from obviously the listing day. So this is an example of a very successful one, and one that has obviously witnessed pretty hefty pullback throughout its listing, here, but overall has been in an uptrend so far. So you can identify them, they're not all without opportunity. It's all about being smart. So how would you play these? Obviously, depending on whether it's a new listing or new token. If it's a new listing, you can potentially find price data on other exchanges that have been listing it beforehand. So going onto TradingView and having a look at the actual price data on a different exchange could obviously show you a point where you can mark out on the chart and say, okay, this is potentially a good place to step in, where obviously if it's new listed on BloFin, it may not show you that to the left here. Secondly is obviously manage your emotions. Don't get too caught up with being obsessed with trying to catch the bottom on something. Understand, price distributes. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And don't be in a rush to trade it. Obviously, look for them bottoming patterns, that compression, that sideways movement to suggest, okay, each time it's coming down here, demand's coming in. This shows, obviously, strong buying down here. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bottom, but you can use risk reward to enter a trade there. You'll have your stop loss in place, one that you're comfortable with. And if it drops down further down, further down into price discovery to the downside, at least you had your theory mapped out and you was utilizing tight controls. And then, you could maybe wait for the next ladder down and then sideways, and then potentially look for, a bottoming pattern there. But overall, new tokens are very, very exciting. They bring obviously a lot of excitement to exchanges for, new tokens and opportunities for people to trade. But also, they provide great opportunities if you're patient with them and if you let them do the thing and distribute and come down to a point of, market structure build where it forms a bottom, what looks like accumulation, and has obviously rinsed out them people that are too impatient or FOMO in or obsessed with trying to catch the bottom too early before it does that. And then you can step in with your risk controls, whether that be, with 5% stop loss, 10%, whatever it may be that you implement, as long as obviously you're not completely gambling with money that you don't want to lose and you just go in liquidation or bust. Having a stop loss in where you're comfortable, you've got your risk reward in there, and you're not doing anything silly. So yeah, these new tokens can be very exciting, obviously really potentially rewarding as well. When you look at Pengu, 10x from the bottom. Obviously, if you didn't catch the Pico bottom, which not many people will have, but there's potentially, 2, 3, 4, 5x there to jump on. But obviously, when you see that ladder down, that brutal ladder down, 80, 90% down, many people have obviously took a huge drawdown on it, being crushed, liquidated, or just sat in a massive loss they can't get out of. You can avoid that by obviously taking some of these techniques, looking at them and saying, what is the smart move? What's the smart move here? And obviously doing your best with that. But yeah, I hope this video's helped. Hope you can obviously take some of this away with you, and whether it just be making sure you look at things more sensibly, or maybe looking for them bottoming patterns, maybe you don't typically look for them, or whether it just be maybe implementing better risk reward strategies or tighter controls, or if you're just looking at it and thinking, I'm going to start looking at the new section on BloFin, I'm going to start looking at that, seeing what is maybe up for grabs for something maybe approaching exhaustion, or something that's retraced down and you want to have a go on it, whatever it may be. Do make sure you sign up, and of course you can view all this on BitUnix as well, so that is in the link in the description for you. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.